Hello, I think I'm live. Today I'm going to start on Australia. I went over there for 2 months. I fell in love with it and I stayed a year. I took a few jaunts in between while I was there. I wasn't in that country the whole time, but I was gone for a year. So it was a pretty beautiful place. Let me turn the lights off. People were incredibly friendly. I was staying, when I first got there in Sydney, my sister and brother-in-law knew some people there. So I was able to stay with them in Sydney. They were really wonderful contacts because I got to learn a whole lot about places to go and things to see. I took a tour of this opera house, which was magnificent. The building has incredible acoustics, whether it's full or whether it's empty. That's the big harbor bridge, which I understand these days they will let you bungee off of. But when I was there, the best you could do was go up it, which was pretty thrilling in and of itself. There's tons of sailing there because of the winds. The very beginning when I got to Australia, it was really lovely. It was summer. I had left. It was January in the States. Cold winter, January in Australia, beautiful summer. It was really nice. One day the wind was blowing. It was like opening up an oven door. It was the hottest wind I had ever felt. I had to actually find someplace to hide from it. It was coming from the interior of the country, and it was really very intense. So this opera house obviously is built to look like it's on sails because there's so much wind and it's so popular a sport there. It's a beautiful city. The people wore very casual clothes. It's summer, right? One of the things that I thought was really fascinating was that the men downtown going to work all wore short, truncated suits. The pants were shorts, the shirt sleeves were short, and the jacket, most of them didn't wear a jacket, but if they had one, it was also a short sleeve. They still had ties on, so it was how they went to work, but it wasn't quite as absurd in terms of the weather. They acknowledged where they were and took advantage of it. It's a far more environmentally friendly way to be. I recall the opposite of that one time when I was in Mississippi. There was a sign over these two gentlemen's head at lunchtime. It said the temperature was 102. They had on long socks. They had on long pants, a long sleeve shirt, a vest, a tie, and a long sleeve jacket. And I thought, that's why it's freezing in all these offices, because you guys are not dressed for the weather. So I very much appreciated the Australian outlook. Also, they take a lot of time off, which is really good for the soul. I was pretty impressed with some of the places. I didn't know they had quite so many old things. This is my beautiful family that let me stay at their place for, I guess stayed in Sydney for around a week. The beaches were gorgeous, except you'd climb up to the top and look out and see over the harbor, and it was really beautiful. You started heading down there. When you got to the water, there were flies everywhere. There were so many flies. When you spoke, you had to move your hand quickly in front of your mouth the whole time so that you weren't swallowing them. And then also some of the waters around there are pretty well known for sharks. So I had to watch what you were doing. This one, actually, I couldn't figure where it was. This one might be in Western Australia, so we'll move on. I bought a train ticket to Perth. I took a few stops along the way. The first one where I stopped was, hold on. I wrote it down, but not right here. I'll be back. All right, so I went over to Katoomba. I have no idea if that's how you say it correctly or not, but uh, it was a really beautiful area. I stayed there for quite a while, also a few days, a week, I don't know. Did a lot of hiking and a lot of exploration into the trails and the woods. It was so cool because you could hear all these creatures around you. I saw this amazing little some kind of lizard thing. I don't know what it was. It was the tail was twice as long as the body. It stood about 4. Its legs kept it off the ground. I wrote about 4 to 5 inches. And I think the body itself was about 5 or 6 inches. And I tried to take a picture of it, but it escaped me before I could do that. I went into some of the creeks and wandering around. I found, I don't think I can show that one. Found one creek that was really very cool. Well, I walked up to the trail and saw some ladies that I had seen at the youth hostel. So we walked together to this creek area, just exploring around. One of the ladies found a rock that is like an ochre or ochre, I think is what they call it. And this was near the area where we were. We started painting ourselves with it. It's this really cool paint rock that will kind of makes you look like warriors. So we had a really good time doing that. Let's see what I wrote about it. We went down and found a secluded pool. They had swimsuits, but I did not have one. I got in first, and the water was cold. Rhonda from New Zealand went in, but Donna from California didn't. Then Rhonda found some ochre rocks that Aboriginals used to paint themselves. Well, so did we. There were several colors, very pale light green, yellow, and red. We painted all over our bodies, then we did our faces. We looked like we had lizards on our stomachs. It was really wonderful. We had a great time. We climbed up on the trees and through all the pools. It was a very comfortable, wonderful place. We washed everything off of our faces, but not the lizards we'd drawn on our stomachs, and hopped on the railway and went wandering around. We were down there for at least 3 or 4 hours. I don't know. It felt like a lifetime. It was so beautiful. I do have a lot of pictures, but it's of all 3 of us with not enough clothes on to show. So forgot to take these out. Moving along. We'll get there, but here's another one. It's a beautiful country. It has a lot of things very different on the exterior, on the edges, than when you get in the interior. The train ride over, well, this is one of the long stairs that was one of the hikes, and they call it the long stairs, and that's just a little section of it. They also have a lot of waterfalls over there, which is interesting because, you know, you always hear so much about how dry Australia is, but they have a lot of water in sections. This was another beautiful location. We went down into it. It was a cave. It was a very wild place. Most of it was open. You could just go wander wherever you wanted to. Hope you can see that beautiful blue water down at the bottom. Then we hiked down there. This is what, whoops, upside down. Let's see if I have. That's it looking back up, and then this is looking at another section down there. But you never know what's lurking in the water in Australia. If you are reading up on any of the deadliest of anything, they generally all show up in Australia. So sometimes it's wise to just look. There were places where I'd hike and I'd hear something, and I heard this thump, 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 thump. And I'd turn around and there would be a kangaroo bouncing across the trail behind me. They were incredible. That went sideways. There's also a lot of quicksand, so you have to be really careful where you step. These are the caves, which I believe is also upside down. Their birds are glorious. They have these beautiful songs. They're very colorful. There are a lot of parrots just out flying through the bushes. I don't know if, whoops, that one's upside down too. I don't know if I'd ever been in a cave before. May have been the first time I had been in one. They had signs in various places that said, be careful. And that was it. Otherwise, you just kind of got to go wherever you were interested in going. The train ride from this area on over to Perth, one of the things I remember most about it is the sunset. It just lasted and lasted and lasted. Because we were heading west, it seemed to have lasted for, I don't know, an hour and a half. It was glorious. I have no idea why. I can't find any of the sunset pictures from there, but if you ever want to take a really nice train ride, I recommend this one. It was really cool to go from some of the real mountainous areas in Australia through all this desert area. And when I was over there, it happened to be the America's Cup in Perth. So there were a lot of people, a lot of activity going on, a lot of fancy boats. They were quite anxious to win, so this was the first one they had up. It said, "Keep dreaming, Dennis." And then when they lost, they went back and said, "Dreams really do come true." I thought they had such a lovely sense of humor. I found some people. I met one person on the train, and he had friends that were over in Perth. They had been on a trip in Tahiti, diving. The woman had carried her own cappuccino machine with her. I was just stunned at how much junk Americans take with them when they travel. When they got to Australia, they wanted to do a lot more tripping around, so they had bought this old car, and we met them and went traveling around with them up to Fremont, rented a bicycle and rode around, and then one day I hitched back into town. It got picked up by a gentleman who had belonged to the yacht club there, so he got me in and a little bit closer to see some of the action. There wasn't the race going on right when I was there, but this is one of the boats that was in the cup. Fremont was really beautiful, ran on the beach a lot, and like I said, they rented a car. We decided to go driving around, and their car didn't do so well. It's just one of the beaches over there. It's just beautiful, but again, you have to be really careful about getting in the water. Parts of the water had a lot of seaweed in it, so I didn't get in, but the other parts were really clear, and we got to go swimming. We were camping here. Then we came into town, and they had this area with all these trampolines, and you could just rent a time on the trampoline, 80 cents for 10 minutes. We headed up later to Pinnacles, which is another pretty out-of-this-world type of scenery in Australia. Couple more. Since I was over on this coast, I had decided that I was going to go up and see Hong Kong, because when I had been in China before, I didn't get to do that. So I headed up. Hold on. There's interesting photos of us renting the car. I don't know where they went. As you can imagine, since I was in Australia for a long time, there's gobs of photos and they're fairly unorganized. That's one of the boats back at the races. It's probably Sydney. So yeah, then we were in the Pinnacles in this old rented car, driving around in an area where there were not very many other cars or other people. And got a flat tire. So I hung out and helped him a little bit, but then I thought, you know what? This is why I hitchhike. So I went over and waited for another car to come along. They couldn't help them. So I hopped in a car with them and I left. It's one of the benefits of traveling solo and being a hitchhiker. Huh. There we go. I don't know why the pictures didn't catch up. Let me show this one again. That was the last I saw of my friends. Moved on. Ciao.